Okay, so let's start with this incredible story about British cycling. For decades, they were just, I mean, the definition of mediocrity.
Total failure, really. They had just one single Olympic gold medal since 1908.
And zero Tour de France winners. It was so bad that bike manufacturers apparently refused to sell to them. They were worried it would hurt their own sales.
Yeah, that's how bad their brand was. So it's hard to imagine a more dismal starting point.
It really is.
And then, in 2003, they bring in Dave Brailsford, and his whole approach was, well, completely counterintuitive. He didn't come in looking for some huge revolution.
Right. He introduced this philosophy of the 1%.
Exactly. He called it the aggregation of marginal gains.
So the idea wasn't about finding one miracle fix. It was about breaking down every single thing that goes into riding a bike and then just trying to improve each tiny piece by 1%.
And the belief was that all those tiny gains would add up to something huge.
It's a systematic approach, which forces you to look beyond the obvious things.
Well, they started with the obvious. You know, redesigned bike seats, using rubbing alcohol on the tires for better grip, that kind of thing.
Testing fabrics in a wind tunnel? Sure. That led them to switch their outdoor riders to indoor racing suits because they were lighter.
All standard high-performance stuff.
But this is where it gets really interesting, where it demands just this incredible dedication because they exhausted the obvious stuff pretty quickly.
And then they had to go looking in some pretty bizarre places.
Who thinks to hire a surgeon just to teach professional athletes the absolute best way to wash their hands?
That is the perfect example of a marginal gain. It's a tiny detail, but it's designed to stop a rider from catching a cold, which could cost them a crucial week of training.
The obsession just went so deep, they were using electrically heated overshorts to keep muscles at the right temperature.
And they famously tested the exact pillow and mattress that gave each individual rider the best possible night's sleep.
My favorite detail, the one that just sounds almost manic, is painting the inside of the team truck white.
Right, why would you do that?
Just to make it easier to spot tiny bits of dust that could mess with the performance of the bikes. It sounds like overkill.
But it's a 1% gain in cleanliness leading to another 1% gain in equipment performance. It all aggregates.
And when you look at the results, you can't argue with it. Before him, one gold medal in 100 years.
And after. 5 years in, they won 60% of the gold medals at the Beijing Olympics.
It's stunning. They went on to get 178 world championships, 66 Olympic gold medals, and 5 Tour de France wins in 6 years.
It just completely transformed them. From a laughingstock to a global powerhouse.
Yeah, so if these tiny, almost invisible changes can do that, why don't we apply this to our own lives? What's stopping us from making that daily 1% choice?
I think it means we have to fundamentally change how we think about progress. We tend to overestimate the importance of one big defining moment. You know, the crash diet, the all-nighter.
And we completely underestimate the value of just making small improvements every single day.
That's the core mechanism. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement.
And that compound interest math is such a powerful analogy. We get it with money, but we really struggle to apply that same logic to our own behavior. Why is that?
Because the results just aren't immediate. But the math is so stark. If you get just 1% better every single day for a year, you don't just get a little better. You end up almost 38 times better.
38 times.
And the reverse is also true. If you get 1% worse each day, one missed workout, one bad choice, you decline almost all the way down to zero.
So the real risk isn't some big spectacular failure, it's drift, just a slow, tiny decline.
Exactly. And it's so easy to dismiss those small choices at the time. You save a little money today, you're not a millionaire tomorrow, you go to the gym 3 days in a row, you don't see a change in the mirror.
So it's easy to just slip back into the old routine because you don't get that immediate reward.
Precisely. That slow pace is the danger zone. And it works for mistakes too. A single poor decision is easy to rationalize. But when you repeat it day after day, that's when the 1% decline starts to compound into really toxic results.
So how do we visualize that slow, almost invisible shift?
The classic airplane analogy is perfect. Imagine you're flying from Los Angeles to New York. If the pilot adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees south at takeoff, you'd barely even notice. The nose of the plane just moves a few feet.
It's imperceptible.
But you magnify that tiny shift across the entire country, and you end up landing hundreds of miles away. You'd be in Washington, D.C. instead of New York.
That's a profound idea. A tiny, almost unnoticeable change in your daily habits can steer your entire life to a completely different destination over, say, a decade or two.
Which was why we should be far more concerned with our current trajectory than our current results.
Right. The results are a lagging measure.
Exactly. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your current weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning habits.
So if you want to predict your future, you just have to look at the curve of your tiny daily choices.
Your outcomes are a delayed reflection of your habits.
This all sounds so straightforward, but we know it's not easy. I remember trying to learn to code, and after 2 months of practicing every day, I honestly felt like I was worse than when I started.
Yes, that feeling of hitting a wall.
It's incredibly frustrating. What's the biggest barrier there? Why is it so hard to apply this consistently?
That feeling you just described is the challenge. It's what we could call the expectation gap. We expect progress to be linear. You put in 10 hours of work, you expect 10 units of results.
Yeah, straight line going up.
But in reality, especially at the beginning, we put in weeks or months of effort and see almost nothing. That gap between what we expect and what we see is the valley of disappointment.
And you feel like the system is broken or that you're broken. You just want to quit.
That's where the ice cube analogy is so helpful. Imagine you have an ice cube on a table in a room that's 25 degrees. You slowly start to heat the room. 26, 27, 28 degrees.
Nothing happens.
29, 30, 31. Still nothing. The ice cube is just sitting there. But then at 32 degrees, it starts to melt.
So all that effort to go from 25 to 31 degrees wasn't wasted. It just felt like the work was being stored.
Exactly. The work was not wasted. It was just stored. Breakthrough moments are so often the result of all those previous actions that were building up potential. They finally cross a critical threshold. We call this the plateau of latent potential.
Mastery requires patience.
It does. So if you're struggling to build a habit, it's probably not because you lack ability. It's often because you just haven't crossed that plateau yet.
Haven't hit 32 degrees.
You haven't. Think of a stonecutter. He might hammer at a rock 100 times and see nothing, not a single crack. But then the 101st blow splits it in two.
And it wasn't that final blow that did it. It was the accumulation of all the blows that came before it.
That's the insight. So if you're in that valley of disappointment, you have to remember your work is being stored, even if you can't see the crack yet.
You have to trust the process.
If you wait for the results to motivate you, you'll almost certainly quit.
Okay, so if we accept that tiny gains are powerful and that we have to push through that plateau, how do we structure things to make sure we actually persist? This is where the big strategic shift comes in, right? Forgetting goals and focusing on systems.
This is probably the most practical solution.
Yeah.
A goal is the result you want to achieve. A system is the process that leads to those results.
But hold on, that feels wrong. I mean, we're always taught to set these big, specific, measurable goals. If I ignore my goal completely, won't I just be, practicing really efficiently in the wrong direction?
That's a fair point. Goals are great for setting an initial direction. They're the map. But the system is the actual engine that drives the car. If you're a coach, your goal is to win the championship. Your system is how you recruit, how you manage your staff, and how you conduct practice every single day. If you focus only on making your system better, the score will eventually take care of itself.
So goals are for planning, systems are for making progress. But we get so fixated on the goal itself. Why is that actually a bad thing long term?
Well, there are a few key problems with a goals-first mindset. First is something called survivorship bias.
Okay.
Winners and losers often have the exact same goal. Every single athlete at the Olympics wants to win a gold medal. The goal isn't what differentiates them.
It's the system. The British cyclists always wanted to win the Tour de France. They only did it when they built a system of marginal gains.
That's it, exactly. What's the second problem?
Let me guess, it's a temporary fix.
Precisely. Achieving a goal only changes your life for that moment. You set a goal to clean your messy room, and you do it. Great. But if you keep the same sloppy habits that made the room messy, you'll be cleaning it again next week.
You're treating a symptom, not the cause.
Right. True improvement means fixing the problem at the systems level. You fix the inputs, and the outputs start to fix themselves.
And the third problem has to do with happiness, right? This constant delay of satisfaction.
Exactly. Goals can restrict your happiness. We create this idea of, I'll be happy once I achieve this thing. It puts satisfaction off into the future.
Whereas a systems-first approach lets you find satisfaction in the process.
You can be satisfied anytime your system's running. You don't have to wait for the result. You just have to show up and do the work.
Which is so much healthier.
Yeah,
What's the last issue with being too goal-focused?
It creates a yo-yo effect. It's at odds with long-term progress. Think about a marathon runner. They train for months, they're incredibly focused. But the second they cross that finish line, what happens?
They stop training, the goal is gone.
The motivation disappears. The purpose of setting a goal is to win the game. The purpose of building a system is to continue playing the game. True long-term thinking is goalless. It's about continuous refinement.
Which brings us right back to where we started. If you're struggling to change, the problem isn't you. It's your system.
Yes, and that's where the term atomic habit gets its real meaning. It's not just a small habit. An atomic habit is a regular practice that's tiny and easy to do, but it's also a fundamental component of a larger system of compound growth.
They're the building blocks that, when you stack them day after day, produce those remarkable results.
They really are.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that mantra. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
That's the core idea. So the question for you to think about is what your current trajectory looks like based on your daily choices. Time will magnify whatever you feed it. Are the tiny things you'll repeat tomorrow making time your ally or your enemy? Because the direction you're heading is so much more important than how fast you're going right now.